Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday service. I know.
That was a bit of a palaver this time, wasn't it, eh?
We've been doing this for 4 years, and most nights we kind of go, yeah, well, we'll do it. We'll sort it out in 5 minutes.
Even the audience were getting twitchy.
I know. It's tonight. We've had all manner of technical shenanigans,
What's this we?
Sorry?
What's this we?
Anyway, hello everybody. Welcome to the Sunday service. How you doing, Drew? How you doing?
Oh, yeah. A little bit tired. A little bit. Just had one of those weeks where I'm feeling a little bit frazzled, but generally, yeah, not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. You?
Yeah, fine. I had my confirmation that I've got my checkup in just over a month's time. There we go. Had to mention the brain op again, and yeah. So
I mean, I like the way you got it in early.
I did get it in early. I'm also going to say, hopefully tonight we are going to be joined by a special guest who is currently having a few technical greeblies himself. So fingers crossed.
Shenanigans.
That's a very good word, that. I do like shenanigans. So we are hoping to be joined by Mr. Michael Reeves at some stage. Fingers crossed. But Drew, would you believe, right? You're not going to believe this. We've got another special guest tonight.
Good Lord.
We've got another special guest tonight. In fact, we're going to go over to him now, right? Joining us live from Downing Street. It's none other. He's gone home.
The cat? Where's the cat?
No, he's obviously just decided that he's got something else to do. So, oh dear, never mind. Well, we tried. we tried. Anyway.
You just got political. Unbelievable.
No, I didn't get political. That was satire, matey. We're talking about the cat, obviously. We didn't mention names. We're talking about the cat. Anyway. Shall we, whilst we're waiting for Michael to sort his technicals out, shall we jump in with do you want to talk about your projects? Because you've been doing some modelling this week.
I have been doing some modelling. So, yeah, we've taken the... We've got to here with the Edward Mustang.
Very nice.
So yeah, we're looking at a few more. Let's take the prop off, shall we? Yeah, we're looking at a few little touch-ups and extra bits have got to be painted, like the obviously the flaps come off. Some of the belly radiator stuff is still got to be painted and touched in. In fact, let's have a live unmasking of the.
Ooh. Now those are the wheel masks they give you, aren't they?
Well, that was blue tack in the tail wheel. Well, there. Yeah. But these are the little masks that come with the Royal boxing, and I'm actually quite smitten with them, I have to say. So,
but rather oddly, Edward give you masks for the main wheel wells, but they don't give you masks for the tail wheel bay.
It's an odd shape, the tail wheel bay, because it's molded. The doors are molded and stuff. So
okay.
Whereas these are flat, but yeah, it's another one of those little details or little things that somebody's decided to bring to market, and you sort of like make one of those faces and go, what's the point in that? And then you try them and you go, yeah, I'm in. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yep.
because they're completely reusable and they're perfectly sized, and they literally just that's your wheel well masked. It's not, it's like just a little fraction of a millimeter bigger all round than the actual bay, so it pushes in that easily, and that's perfectly masked. And it's one of those. Is it an essential part or tool to finish this model? No, not in a million years. Is it really, really good? Yeah, absolutely. It's really, really good. And enough that I will be checking them out to see what else they do, because if you're building multiples, like I've got 4 of these to build at some point, being able to just move from model to model with them is just great. And it's they're only like it's like a phone kind of.
I was just going to say that was Rory's modelling page asked, "What are the masks made of?"
Just a little elasticy foam, sort of quite dense foam. It's difficult because obviously they got paint on them. But yeah, it's just this sort of squishy, quite dense foam, and I think they're die cut. I'm not sure, but yeah, like I say, it's literally. And they just pop in like that, and that's it. It just doesn't get any easier, does it?
Yeah, I can see somebody actually branching out and marketing a whole range of them separately.
Well, this is a company. This is a company.
Oh, right.
This is an actual company that does it.
Okay.
So which Edward sort of buy in lots of stuff quite a lot of the time, don't they? In fact, entire kits. This is one of those little things that they've found that helps, and so they've included them in the Royal boxing. So Rory says like what earplugs are made of. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much what those expanding foam earplugs are made of. But yeah, I just think it's one of those great little things that you kind of raise an eyebrow at initially, and then try and go, yeah, no, I'm in. But other than that, it's there's a radiator part come off because that's not glued in yet. But yeah, other than that, it's been just all most this week has been painting. Everything's missed the colour so far. I did freehand the green, so that's all freehand.
Show off.
Yeah, do you know what? It's good to sort of practice your chops every now and then, but you look at it in retrospect and go, I might as well have masked that. Really, it wouldn't have made a huge amount of difference. Yeah, it's free-handed, but it was more just more an act of hubris than necessity, if you know what I mean.
Oh, Mike's joined us. Hi, Mike. Can you hear us now?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. I'm actually just on my phone right now.
That's fine.
So here's the deal. I got a brand new monitor and now 2 new laptops, and neither one of them of my laptops I could get sound out of. So I have gone to the last resort of my phone. So sorry about that.
That's all right.
You're here, Mike. That's all that matters, really. Yeah, ultimately, doesn't it?
Mustang looks brilliant, by the way.
Sorry?
The Mustang looks brilliant.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Much appreciated. It's it's coming along. Obviously the invasion stripes are too neat, but there you go.
Oh, you had to get it in there, didn't you?
Well, they're applied with a broom, you know. Sorry. I'll stop. Give me strength.
I know. It's we're back to that kind of similar thing about, I've told you that story before about Dad when he was in the Royal Navy being told paint some invasion stripes on that. Fine, Mike. Paint some invasion stripes on these aircraft, and they ran out of black paint, so he painted them roundel blue. And for years, I had people telling me that didn't happen, and then lo and behold, photograph emerges, and there is a Sky Raider with roundel blue stripes on it, and it's most likely one painted by Dad. So
it's the same as some of them we used light stone instead of yellow because that's all they had.
No.
So
Yeah.
But no, it's I've seen it particularly this week again with obviously it being the 80th anniversary of Overlord. You know, the usual. They were painted with mops. They don't have to be too clean. People coming out the woodwork, and it really just makes me grind my teeth.
It makes me grind my teeth for the simple reason that yes, there were examples where they were a little bit they were hastily applied, but in all my time, I've never come across photographs of invasion stripes that look like they've been applied by modelers. Let's put it that way. If you know what I mean. If you understand what I mean.
The thing is, like for most of the time, and I know I'm being uncharitable here, but most of the time people are using that basic truth as an excuse for sloppy modeling.
Yeah.
They're not, you know, it's not like, because if you looked at that and decided to do it in prototypical fashion, it would take you longer than masking them off exactly and doing them, because you'd have to work on the technique you're using to apply them to get the right impact. So for me, get them on as neat as you can and then work on the weathering after.
Yep.
You know, it just, because it just, unfortunately, in small scales, if you apply them in a sloppy fashion, they are going to look sloppy.
I'd agree. And we're back to that, our old mantra of, you know, if people are absolutely free to paint and build their models how they wish.
Right.
But it does, you know, like I say, it does make me scratch my head a bit sometimes when you know, you're getting this thing about, oh, they were literally kind of chucked on with brooms. No, they weren't. They generally.
Well, some of them were, but most of them.
Yeah,
Point is that you in scale.
Yeah.
People are using it. People say, "Oh, my invasion stripes aren't that neat and tidy," and somebody immediately comes along and says, "The real things are applied with mops. Don't be too worried about it." It's like, no, get them good, then work on how you're going to make them look scruffy.
Yeah,
it's the B26 wing picture that everybody. It's the go-to for everybody who thinks that these things are the sloppiest things ever applied. They weren't.
No, and if you look at that photograph of the B26s, they're actually, when you see them in the distance, they're actually quite neat.
Yeah,
right.
Well, even though in that picture, if you look at the invasion stripes on the other wing of that B26 in the photo, you're only 20 feet away from them, and they already look pretty neat. It's not, you know, and plus, I mean, the other side of that is I've seen various colorized variations on that picture, and they're not very, and a couple of them have been very well done, but the majority of colorization I'm finding at the moment is pretty, you know, it's pretty ropey. You know, I was looking at a picture of a Mustang having the invasion stripes painted on the other day, and it's, you know, there's that, it's almost like an AI thing. It's obvious when something's been colorized.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's obvious, but it still looks great. And sometimes it's obvious because it looks pretty shabby. It looks pretty poor. So, you know, I mean, like you say, everybody's perfectly entitled to do exactly what they want. But I have an issue with people using it as an excuse for sloppy modeling.
Right. And again, I would just go back to my model, my display case.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. It's fine. It's fine, but I'm not gonna, you know, it's, you know, I went back over those stripes 3 or 4 times in various places to get them as neat as possible. I'll scruffy them up later, but the starting point has to be a neat set of stripes.
And again, it's 48 times smaller than the real thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shall we leave the controversy behind us, and shall we dive on with some news?
Controversy, we're right.
And by the way, I can't see any of the comments.
Don't worry, Mike. They're all saying lovely things about you. Don't worry.
Even if they aren't, I don't care. But
let's dive on. Let's dive on with a bit of news. And Arma Hobby announced this week or last week rather, they are doing a 1/48 scale P39 Aero Cobra. Oh my goodness me! I mean, for an aeroplane that, frankly, in Allied hands, it wasn't. I think it's fair to say it wasn't a great success, but it certainly did do very well for the Russians. But as modelers, we do have this fascination with the P39, don't we?
Well, it's because it's a tricycle engined aircraft, isn't it? Mid-engine tricycle undercarriage. I mean, I think it's another one of those aircraft it's easy to be very harsh about, but it did a really, really sterling job in the early years of the Pacific War because it was what was available, like the P40. You know, the Mustangs and the Thunderbolts didn't really start turning up till later on. So, you know, the Aerocobra held the line for a couple of years and did it pretty well, it has to be said. Very nicely balanced, flew very well. Reliability issues. But yeah, it's and I've always really loved the aeroplane. I think it's a great looking aeroplane.
I remember, goodness me, I remember building the Revell 3-in-1 kit back in the 1970s, and just being, you know, for some reason I was completely wowed by it as a kid. But yeah, it's just one of those aircraft that I've always had a soft spot for. And are we going to do this, Drew? Are we going to do the wibbly wobbly moment? Going back
to 2000.
Going back to 2000 when the Edward kit came out. And,
I remember buying that.
And we were coming back in a minibus. Was it being driven by Mick Palace or somebody? But we were coming back in a minibus and we were poring over my Edward kit that I'd bought and being very impressed with it. But oh my goodness me, that is nearly 25 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is that a few years after Edward released theirs, Hasegawa released one as well, but you just never see the Hasegawa kit.
No,
yeah,
it was about that time when Hasegawa sort of really started seriously withdrawing from Western markets. And so I don't think I've ever seen that model outside of on the internet, and it's a nice model, but you know,
same here, Drew. I've never seen one in the flesh.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, obviously, Arma Hobby doing it. It's you know, I'm in from the. We've had a reasonable, pretty good relationship with Arma Hobby, so I might like to hope that we might be able to score one of them.
I've got to say, I want those P39s in those kind of deserty camo with the red edged stars and bars. I love those schemes. They just scream out kind of weathering, don't they?
Yeah,
it's just it's a nice piece of box art as well. It's
absolutely
super. Arma Hobby just does such great packages now. You know, everything. People say they're a little bit more expensive. Yeah, they are. So you know, again, you just make your choice, don't you?
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah, I just picked up their 48 scale Hurricane. I mean, it was, you know, $65, but when you open the box, and you've built a couple, I believe, already, Drew.
I built one, yes.
The kit looks as magnificent in the box as how well it goes together. And in the case of the Aerocobra right now, look at those little tiny Death Stars that they use as nose weights, and the way they cradle them in there. So
yeah, and the 72nd scale
enough.
Kit. That's a direct carryover from the 72nd scale kit as well.
That's beautiful.
Which has and you know that Arma Hobby have worked that out. So that's all you need to do. You don't need to find room for any more weight anywhere. You know, if Arma Hobby have provided that as weight, it's going to work.
Yep.
You know, and the thing is, I mean, I can remember I built 3 of the Edward ones in rapid succession when it was released, and back in the glory days of Modelers Underground and stuff.
Lord.
Mug.
And you know, it was a great model, but you look at it 23 years, 24 years down the line. Sorry, John. And you know, it becomes increasingly obvious that it's a 24-year-old tooling.
But back in those days when Edward popped on the scene with that, and was it the MiG-21, I believe?
The MiG-21 was much later, Mike.
No, I'm thinking of the
Mirage 3 came along a couple of years later.
Thank you. game changers for the European market.
Yeah, well, I think I'm right in saying that the Aero Cobra was possibly one of the first of a sort of like their new breed.
Yeah.
If you like, it's when they moved on from being limited run, to actually being, you know, proper product, and that's evidenced by the fact that those tools are still in use today.
Yeah.
You know, we look at it 24 years down the line, and you can see, I mean, the wing trailing edges are, you know, unacceptably thick now. We put up with them then because that's the technology we had. You look at it now, and you know, they're unacceptably thick.
I don't think we're allowed to talk about wing trailing edges today, are we?
Oh, here we go.
Oh,
Mike.
Drew, you softballed it.
Oh,
you put it right over the plate for me.
oh.
He's using baseball terms now. Goodness
I think
me.
that's something to do with wickets, John.
Yeah,
I was just going to say it's something to do with something to do with that.
You gave
We're on a
yourself
sticky wicket here, aren't we?
yourself a penalty kick.
Oh,
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. But going back to
Great
the subject
woobly.
in hand here, yeah, I think that's going to be a winner for Arma. It's been a decade and a half since we've had a new Aero Cobra. How many color schemes can you put on an Aero Cobra? Well, just, you know, you can carry on ad infinitum, can't you?
Yes, because it was a remarkably widely used aeroplane. When you factor in, you know, Soviet Union, France, Italy, you know, it was actually quite widely used, and the Americans used them everywhere. You know, the Aleutians throughout the Pacific.
Yep.
In fact, Europe is probably one of the only places it never really saw much service. And even then, it's sort of the southern Mediterranean. It was present there, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, but in smaller numbers. I think most.
Yeah. I mean, it was largely
a Pacific used airplane mainly for the Americans
because it had to hold the fort in the Pacific for a couple of years. You know, it's like you know, there's a reason that Arma Hobby have done that Cactus Air Force where they've sort of dual kitted that with the F4 Wildcat in 72nd, because those are the two aircraft that really, along with the P40, arguably, sort of held the line.
Yeah, they anchored the war until the Hellcat, the Corsair, and the P38.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mike Williams makes an interesting comment here. He says they made a conscious decision to not rivet it to as a cost saver. So
I wish Magic Factory would have done that with a certain A4 Skyhawk.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm full of controversy.
I mean, I've looked at the I've looked at the photographs of the Magic Factory A4 and have sort of checked my stash of Hasegawa kits. Let's put it that way.
Me too.
It's, you know, it's still the what was that?
I gave a thumbs up and it did like an emoticon. That was weird.
Yeah.
I've never seen that happen. Thank you, Facebook.
Yes, thank you, Facebook. Shall we dive on to the next bit of news tonight? And this is Reskit, and they are, oh my goodness me. I mean, this just really shows you what 3D printing is getting up to these days. And this is air intakes, landing gears, and wheel bays and weighted wheels for the Hobby Boss 148 scale F105 Thunder Chief. I mean, Mike, you're in this game, so you know how much this technology is really, you know, kind of revolutionizing our accessory market, isn't it?
For sure. And you know, Reskit is certainly a competitor of mine. However, what they're coming out with their current way of doing things is, you know, they're not a garage guy like I am. These guys are really hiring some certainly amazing CAD drawing individuals, and they've perfected a lot of their printing processes. I'm sure at this point they're using much more commercial printers than guys like me, you know, who are still using the 12K Elegoo's and the like. But this is really impressive, isn't it?
It's just like it's a complete kit within a kit, isn't it? It's you know, I mean, this is one of those areas where for me, you know, these bits are as a possibly controversial opinion, too good for the donor kit.
Right.
I don't, because I really don't rate the donor kit at all. It's not a great model.
And to be frank, I mean, honestly, I'm not trying to criticize them at all. Their approach of this is very revolutionary to me. However, to me, the intakes are a waste because you can't even see down them, basically, other than the first couple of inches. And then you won't even be able to see that fan section once it's installed in the airplane. But that said, the fact that they can do it speaks volumes.
It's just a beautifully realized piece.
Absolutely.
Of, you know,
I have no criticism other than the fact that the intakes to me are you know, now I'm spending money on something I don't really need.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect what we're seeing here, Mike, is that possibly on the 30-second one, because they're doing it in, I think, 30-second as well, because they always do. I think it would possibly be a little bit more visible.
Certainly, in 30 seconds.
And
48,
I think it's just one of those things where it's cheaper just to resize it for 48 than it is to redesign it to take that feature out.
Sure.
It's just, you know.
I also think there is a slight element there that kind of accessory set will appeal to modelers, especially competition builders who put stuff into competitions, and then judges come along with their little pen lights and they're peering in there, and it's that, you know, it's for people who want to put everything into their kit.
It's for those people.
Well, but at the same time, the question I have, because I've seen the cost of said set, is also going to play into people's budgets on how far they're willing to go for said donor kit. Like Drew says, you know, they're going to take a kit that they can buy now on the streets for $40, and they're going to add basically $100 for gear. And to me, it's outpricing themselves out of the market a little bit, but people will buy it for the wow factor. You have to be super serious to be able to want to spend that kind of money.
And my other question would be, how many of those are actually going to find their way into builds?
Exactly. And but on the same token, and again, I can also say when Rich Van Zant and I worked through the Hobby Boss A10 stuff, that I think I had 6 separate sets for that kit alone, not even correcting the nose or anything, but it was new cockpit, engines, pylons, wheels, you name it, centerline tank, all that good stuff. If you were to buy all of it, it was going to be $135.
Yeah. Yeah. But it allows you to cherry pick the bits you want.
Exactly. So I think if Reskit, if I was marketing it, but I don't think they can, because I think they integrated the landing gear bays, the main gear bays intake. Had they not done that, they could have done the landing gear and bays as a separate part number, and then done the intake as its own part number, so to allow people to kind of cherry pick, like you said, what they want. I think you need to be as flexible as possible in this day and age when it comes out with new stuff like that.
I mean, as far as A10s go, you know, if I've got new engine fronts and a new gun barrel, most of the rest I can live with. Do you know what I mean? It's you know, there's I'll gild the lily further if I want to, but you know, the two things that scream at me are always engine fronts and, you know, and the gun barrel.
And see, that's where every modeler is different, correct? That's the important thing for you. Another guy might not like the pylons, so they replace something like the pylons we did. So that's why I like doing multiple things for one airplane, and allowing and not doing I don't like the big combo sets, because that just turns into a mess of trying to keep track of everything that has to go in said set.
A bit like back in ye oldie 1980s when Verlinden used to do their upgrade sets, but it would all be about opening every panel on the aeroplane, wouldn't it?
And the photo etched rivet for the fasteners and things like
Yeah.
that.
Again, perhaps there's another factor there is that we're talking about, people at Edward doing these, their big headsets and stuff.
Right.
They are a major concern. They can afford to put somebody just boxing them for a week. You can't do that, Mike. You have to.
Nope.
You are in some ways where you've got the advantages. You're very responsive because of the way you run the business, and you're entirely 3D print based now. You can respond to a requirement or a desire, can't you? It's
Yeah, and frankly, I've always admitted I'm terrible with like replying to emails and things like that, because it takes my focus away from the job at hand. That said, it doesn't make my customers less important. But if I get an email saying, "Hey, I got a broken part," okay, I'm just going to replace it. I'm sending it to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even reply to the email. I just send it, because every time I sit at the computer, it's more time away from these guys.
Yeah, making bits. And every time I open a new box now, I look at the wheels to see if I can replace them.
Well, Buccaneer.
Yeah. I've got a few plans in the pipeline, Mike. Just bear with me.
And frankly, for those listening, our dear friend Drew, I'm gonna plug him right now. I've got 3 new part numbers coming out that Mr. Manton has designed and was nice enough to sell me the files. So it's always good to be able to support my friends in that regard. So just look for the big fat Mirage 2000 wing tanks. I think they're 2,000 liter, if I'm not mistaken.
Gigantic is just where I.
Yeah. We're going to have those in 48th and 72nd. I might even get crazy someday and decide to scale them up to 32, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And then he also did, which I'm sure you guys have seen online, the A26 Invader wing tanks for the ICM kit. So those will be out. All of those will be out this week. So I'm really excited to add those to my line. And and Drew has done other things for me, and is certainly a welcome member to the design team here.
Yeah, Mike, appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Russell Taylor, B24 wheels. That's one I'm looking at as well. Looking at getting information together for that as well. So,
and that's just it too. I mean, everybody knows me as Modern Jet Guy. That's what Face Hanger is. I'm excited to release anything that modelers would like.
Yeah. Well, it's a business, Mike. So there's nothing stopping you, filling a niche if it's there to be filled, is there?
Yeah.
So,
well, in fact, and I don't want to make this about me. One last plug is Craig Sargent right now is finishing up some non-MLU F-16 pylons, wing pylons for me for early Vipers before the MLU mods. So I should have those out really soon too. So for like your nets and early A's and B's and even early C's, these would be applicable. So pretty excited about that.
I'm just gonna jump in here to share an experience I had last week. I popped into that there Bristol to visit Model U, who are based in the city, and they do model railway stuff, but they started to branch out into military bits and bobs as well. Got an invite from them to come along, and they were just working on some new scans that day. This is their 3D scanner. Well, it's not really a scanner. It's a series of digital cameras that can generate a 3D image. So there was the actor in the booth. Does look like a transporter from Star Trek, doesn't it? And but yes, they, like I say, they're working on some new figures, and Alan took me through the kind of the basics of how they do it and how they can tweak the designs for different scales. For example, the newspaper on this one, it needed to be fattened up for the smaller scales. And there we are. That is the 72nd scale printed figure. Still a work in progress. That's still a few things that they were needing to refine on it. But and the other thing that they're branching out into is coloured 3D prints that come out already painted or coloured rather, using different inks, different resins rather. So again, it's very early technology, but I can see how this would be very popular with the model railway world, because in the past, they have been big consumers of ready painted figures.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, looking at those there, they look quite furry, but you actually look at the fidelity of the detail. If you look at the bottom of that guy's suspenders, where the inverted Y shape, that's hollow.
Yeah,
you know, that's a tiny little detail to 3D print in different colors.
Well, the other thing is, I think you might be able to see on that driver figure is what appears to be a 3D printed 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah, I was looking at that. It's a 5 o'clock shadow,
wow.
isn't it?
Yeah. So this technology will get more precise. I mean, we know that, because if you look at 3D prints from 10 years ago, they were very kind of basic, whereas now we're getting stuff that looks like injection molded plastic. And that was one of the goodies that I came away with, was a tool chest, which was very kind. It's 143rd, but I'm sure we can get it to work in 148th. But they did leave the, if you pardon the pun, they did leave the door open for another visit. So I know. It's been a long day. But absolutely fabulous. And made in Brizzle. So
Brizzle.
Yeah. So I would like to just give another big shout out to Alan for the for the invite to go and visit there. Absolutely fabulous stuff. Really very, very impressed, and it just gives you a kind of insight into, where is this hobby going to go in the next 10 years? What are we going to be able to print? I think I saw today somebody said that they've got a 3D printed working chain or something.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, people have been able to do these working 3D prints using FDM modeling, FDM printing for years now.
Right.
Some of the stuff that happens, the resolution isn't good enough for most modeling applications on FDM. But in terms of making working models, it's just some of the stuff that, if you've seen the fold up fast jets and stuff that people have done that just look like transformers and they just all fold together, and it just forms this, quite nice little model. So that's moving slowly over to resin 3D printing as well. So, it's hugely impressive. And I mean, Mike will be able to sort of tell you, and even in the last 2 years, the printing is going through constant revolutions, isn't it, Mike?
It's ridiculous.
If you were to compare something that we were printing 2.5 years ago with what we're printing now, and we're probably getting it in a third of the time.
Yeah.
and it's just,
and it's even better now. Rich Van Zant got his pre-order of the Saturn IV Ultra, and a print that normally takes him 13 hours is done in 6 at the same settings. So it kind of reminds me of back in the day of like the plasma TVs, right? You buy a plasma TV when they first came out, they were $10,000.
Yeah.
The technology didn't improve, but it has since, but just with plasma TVs, but within a couple of years, the production version and the cost of production went down so much that you could buy that same $10,000 TV from 2 years ago for $1,100. That's how fast the technology is moving with 3D printing.
The Saturn IV Ultra is pretty much the cheapest of the Saturns so far, isn't it? It's
I've got one coming. It's supposed to be here next week.
I mean, it's not on sale in the UK yet. I will be. But the other thing is, because it's the world is now a small place, generally speaking, it's also the equipment that people like Mike and I use is the same for this. So I can verify what I'm providing to Mike, knowing that Mike is going to be using the same printer with the same resin and the same settings.
Right.
If it works for me, given the vagaries of what, you know, the Arizona weather compared to the oval weather, which can affect printing, but maybe, you know, doesn't to a great degree. I just know that if I verified it on my printer, I know that it's going to work for Mike.
And the thing is, you can't see it, but over there, I've got about 15 quarts of resin. I keep it all in the house. I can't keep it out in the garage right now because the garage gets to about 102 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment. So, which, by the way, really sucks because I spend a lot of time out there.
Yeah, no, thank you.
But that's the great thing about having a swimming pool. I can wear my swimsuit, go jump in, and come back and work in the garage. But yeah, the printing technology it's just soared in the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, when Drew and I got our first Saturns, we were like, oh my gosh, 4K. Holy cow, these things are amazing. And then I started selling some of my stuff when I first started going to 3D only. And I'd get there are a lot of print lines on here. So you had to go through the conversation of take a Q-tip with Tamiya lacquer thinner. No kidding. And you could still do this even to this day, guys. Little secret for you. Q-tip or earbud or whatever you guys call them over in the UK. Little Tamiya lacquer thinner. You can rub it on print lines, and after a couple of minutes,
they start to fade away. But having said that, Mike,
throw a primer on it.
I found in recent, like my most recent test prints of those Mirage 2000 tanks we were talking about, under a coat of primer, I can't see the print lines.
Oh,
you know, the printing is so fine now that it's just, and I mean, we're awful for each other, aren't we? Because we're constantly, you, me, and Nigel are constantly goading each other into new acquisitions.
Yeah. 0.02 microns. I mean, it doesn't get much smaller.
No. And you know, as soon as you have a Saturn IV Ultra, I will have one as soon as I can get my hands on one.
I know. I pre-ordered mine from Elegoo, so
they're still taking pre-orders, but for 3D printers, I tend to stick with Amazon because it's just easier to deal with them these days.
Normally, I do too, especially once they're readily available.
Yeah.
In fact, all of these, Amazon.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, that's Mike and I have sort of cornered the show tonight, John.
That's fine. It's fascinating stuff because it's not 3D printing. It's something I use products, and like I say, I've got some of these. I've got some of these Model U figures. I've got some of the WAF figures that I'm currently painting up in 1/48 scale. There we go. Yes, exactly. And so I think it's a great technology. It really is. And like I say, it's going to be really interesting to see where we are in 10 years' time with it.
Yeah.
And what is it going to be able to do? Because,
I'll jump in here real quick, and I'd also say it's not just going to be the printing technology that's going to explode. I think the 3D drawing technology is going to get more simplified for the everyday human.
Without a doubt.
Right now, I'm learning it, and I'm the dumbest human being on the planet sometimes, and I feel absolutely stupid when I think I'm doing something right, and what the heck just happened? And to be honest, Mike, I've been doing it for what, 5 years now, and that is still the headspace I'm in most of the time. It's a never-ending learning process.
The one thing you do learn is that there's no fixed way of doing any one job.
Nope.
No, nobody can look at a process you've used and say that was wrong if the result that came out the other side is what you were looking for. Somebody might be able to say, have you thought about doing this instead?
Yeah, you could refine it so, you could refine it faster, or, if you try this. Yeah. Okay, well,
I'm sure you've experienced that thing as well, where you do something and suddenly that light bulb goes off and suddenly you understand what you're doing.
Right.
And suddenly it's like, I get it now. And I've just started exporting stuff into Blender to mess around with wheel bulges and stuff like that. that's a whole nother ball game.
Well, this right here, the seat cushions on this, can you see them a little bit?
Yeah.
These are the sheepskin
Blender,
seat cushions on a Aces 2. They're very, very textured. That was all done in Blender, and that takes a while to do and learn.
Yeah. It's because it's a different. It's treating the article as a different thing from what it is in 3D in CAD. It's a mesh. It's a different kind of object. So it's a whole new learning process. Which, looking at what John was showing from the model, the 3U guys, they were using ZBrush there, weren't they? Which ZBrush, you look at people using ZBrush, and it's very, very, very intuitive. How you do that sort of thing in ZBrush. You can do almost everything you can do in ZBrush, you can do in Blender. The difference is in ZBrush, it's very, very intuitive and quick, but ZBrush is also mind-bogglingly expensive to have that.
And you and I mean, we could have this conversation ad nauseum. We use primarily Fusion 360, which is kind of an entry-level 3D program. I could go out and get SolidWorks, but we're looking at $5,000 to $6,000 of an investment that needs to be able to pay off fairly quickly, because for a small business, that I don't take loans. I do everything through profit and sales and things like that, because as a small business, I don't want to go into debt.
No, that makes perfect sense. And the thing with Fusion is, like, it's
good enough.
It's good enough, and the licenses, if you buy a license for it, you can wait for it to be on offer, and it's sort of £350, £400 a year for a license, which sounds a lot of money, but in terms of commercial software, is incredibly cheap.
And when you think about it, Drew, and just between you and I know we have people listening, but just for what you've done for me recently, your license is paid for this year. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the way I look at it. If I do, another couple of jobs for you in the next couple of months, that's next year's paid for.
Right.
and then anything after that is literally, is gravy.
Gravy money. And that's the thing I tell anybody that has ever done work for me. I don't bother you. If you tell me, hey, I'm doing this, are you interested? Sure.
Yeah.
What do you want? And that's how business works. In this realm, I'm not in the Reskit realm where they're, got 25, 30 employees or however many people they have working for them. I have me, myself, and I.
Steve Moore's there saying SolidWorks has some good startup deals. SolidWorks also do a subscription model, which costs about £10 or £11 a month for access to it, which is, again, is a fabulously good deal. There is, I've actually got on a separate screen at the moment, I've tried them all, is Onshape, which is another CAD program. It's entirely based online, but you would never know it when you're using it. And it's free, very powerful. The kind of flip side of that is, because it's free, everything you do is publicly available.
Right.
Now, for what we do, arguably that isn't going to make a huge amount of difference, because people need to know where to go to look for it and stuff like that. So,
and if you don't tell them that's where it came from, they're not going to know any better.
Yeah. So it doesn't, I've used it and it's fine. And I'm looking at one particular job at the moment. I'm going to be asking you if you're interested in, which I did in Onshape. It's one of the 2 or 3 I've done in Onshape so far. But once you get, if you're interested, once you get the file, you're not going to know it's from Onshape.
Nope.
It's just going to be an STL file. Absolutely. So, that's going to be good enough. So yeah, for people interested in getting into CAD, there are plenty of options out there. Plus, there is obviously free CAD, which is completely free and is open source, and is actually, for the kind of modeling we do, for the kind of 3D CAD work we do, which is static fixed parts, is probably good enough for 95% 100% of what I do in
Right.
Fusion, I could do in FreeCAD. I'd need to learn some certain new ways of manipulating it, but there's nothing to stop you doing that.
Right. And this goes back to what I said just 5, 6, 10 minutes ago. Look at the fact that at one point in time it was only SolidWorks.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, you've rattled off at least 5 different options for people to use if they're interested. End of the day, could it destroy my business where people are printing their own things? Maybe. But
I think
people have to be able to put in the work.
Yeah, I think eventually maybe, Mike, but I think you're safe for a good few years yet.
Yeah.
I think you're safe for a good few years yet, but eventually people, a 3D printer is going to become a normal, almost the white good in a household, I would think.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, and I've compared it in several cases to people that buy these printers thinking, well, I'm just going to, they'll go to, some of the free places like that you can just download files, or you pay for STLs to print. I want Yoda. Well, they got 5 STLs that you buy for £6 or whatever, and you can print Yoda. That's going to be the one thing that I think about printers that's going to make a difference for people in their own homes. The one major factor I think is always going to be a thing are people actually taking the time to sit down and draw.
Yeah. Yeah, and most people don't.
It's instant satisfaction. I want it now. I want it tomorrow.
Most people dabble and then kind of like a lot of hobby stuff. A lot of people dabble and then move on quite quickly.
Mm-hmm. Look at Spencer. Spencer flat out says he doesn't try new stuff because he loves what he has always used. And if Spencer, if you're listening, just keep it up. You're doing great. He uses the same tools and techniques to his benefit because he knows how they work.
Yeah, and he's doing it on a commercial basis.
Yep,
he can't afford to be experimenting
with a kit for publication.
Yeah, he really can't afford to be experimenting too much. Whereas we I experiment all the time. I'm like 2 iterations on from the Mirage tanks I've shown you that you've got for now. The ones that are going on sale are perfectly fine. But because I sit down here and think, well, let's try this, and I can redesign a little bit of it, print it, try it, and go, well, that worked. There's another option.
You should look at Rafal tanks.
Yeah, and that's that's one that is on that's on the list because they look quite similar to the Mirage tanks, but they are not. Then if you look at the back end, Mike, they're completely
right. The back end, but the actual shape of the tank itself, I think the bulbous part at the front.
Yeah.
I think on the Rafal is actually it goes farther aft.
Yeah, it's so it's one that will require research, but it's again another one that's on the list, along with some more interesting stuff, should we say, that we can't.
We are joined by, Mike's mentioned him a couple of times. We are joined by Richard Van Zandt. Richard, I can't tell if he's quoting Dune here at the moment. Drawing is the time killer. But yes, I can tell you from my perspective of doing vector graphics that drawing really is that's the time killer.
Otherwise, Jonathan, you could be doing your own decal business and throwing out 100 sheets a week if it was fast and simple. Yep.
Well, yes, I checks with lawyers. Yeah, they're shaking their heads. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say. But yes, if I was slightly less diligent with my work, I could certainly chuck out a lot more. Let's put it that way. That's all I'm going to say. We've got James Ray says, in the autumn, I'm starting a 3D printing course at my local tech college. The gear they have is phenomenal, including 3D color printing. And
you look at Jerry down the bottom here, just starting my new 3D printing journey. Jerry, any questions you got, mate?
Absolutely.
Just feel free, because the more people we can get into this. It's also interesting to note that Arma Hobby are selling their 3D files now as well. Because Arma Hobby have been including 3D prints in their kits for quite some time in terms of details and stuff. And now, if you look at, they've actually got a section on their website where they're selling those files. So for people who want to print them at home, you know, so again, one-off purchase, and you've got the file.
And you can print 10 million of them.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it kind of relies a little bit on people's honesty not to start selling them.
Yeah. You know, is it NEZ or NE's Tom?
Yeah, Annie's, yeah.
Yeah.
I have his F-35 wheel files I bought from him, and they're phenomenal. And frankly, again, as a small business guy, and I know Tom's a small business guy, and his stuff is freaking phenomenal. Let's just put it out there. One of the best in the business, flat out. I would buy his files before I would buy a set from Reskit. And the reason being, as a small business man, I'm going to support small business.
Yeah.
And I know how much work the man puts into it. So I don't know. I don't want to sound sour grapes at all with Reskit or Edward or anybody, because they have a different market.
It's a different market sector altogether, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's absolutely a different market sector. But yeah, you know, files. It's the way it is slowly going for a lot of people to, you know. I mean, I'll be buying a lot of those Arma Hobby files just to have them.
Right.
But
that said, Drew, here's the only issue I have with that. You buy someone's files because you saw what they're selling. You saw their product that they printed. You run it on your printer that is a lower resolution, or you don't have the same settings, or so suddenly now you're getting complaints. Well, these files are crap. Well, maybe it's at your end, where you're not experienced enough yet. In some cases, and I'd say in many cases for the hobbyists, right? I've got a printer. I love it. I just want to print it. You have to have your printer optimized to print the way things need to be printed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
How much time, Mike, have we spent going backwards and forwards on resin selections?
Oh yeah.
We've spent myself, Mike, and Nigel. We have spent months going backwards and forwards just on resin selections before we all came to the same conclusion on a particular resin, which we still use, I think, don't we? We still use the Soraya Navy.
I've actually stopped.
Have you?
I've discovered the Elegoo 8K is printing their navy gray, or not navy gray, whatever it's called. It's over there. It warps less. It's not as soft. So
right.
For me, with pylons and things like that, you know, you walk away, you forget about your alcohol wash for 5 minutes. Some things go wah, that
right
with Soraya Tech. With the production that I run, I may have to walk away to load printers, right? So I've got printers to, you know, take parts off, put them in the first batch of the wash. Then I'm now sitting on the computer loading the file for the next print. I've noticed with Soraya Tech, and this is just me, and it could be the fact that I do all my wash and everything outside, and I live in Arizona. It might be a little bit warmer, which creates that warpage. I've discovered with this Elegoo 8K, I think it's called Space Gray.
We're not getting any of that. Interesting. Because I've been hearing a lot of good stuff about Sunlu resins recently. So I've got some Sunlu resin here to try. And initially I'll start off with the same settings I know work with you know what I currently use. And then I kind of work back from there. With I mean Richard's dead right. You know, I mean, I think having learnt the Mars 4 Ultra has been absolutely brilliant, and I think when I go to the Saturn 4 Ultra, you know, my hopping off point will be the Mars 4 Ultra, where I've got so far with that.
So you start there.
Right?
You start with those settings, and then you kind of, if you have to adjust here and there, you know, bottom exposure, Rich has been invaluable for teaching me, and thanks for being here, Rich. Because he does a lot for me. He always has, and I carry his stuff, so it's a natural team business.
Well, yeah, I mean, Rich's stuff is next level. It's
don't give him a big head, Rich.
Well, it is, Mike. It's among Rich's is the sort of stuff that intimidates me.
Rich has been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a couple of years, but it's still,
I'll tell you right now, the favorite thing that I carry that Rich was so gracious to allow me to have in my line is his A10 cockpit.
Yeah.
The detail, the work, and this is what 3.5 years ago is so level beyond what I thought was available in 3D printing. The Skyhawk cockpits, everything's beautiful there too. The problem with Skyhawk cockpits, they're this big and you can't see anything.
Yeah.
But the seats, the Escapac seats that we now have, I think 8 versions of, no one else has them. And that's because Rich did that research along with a couple friends, Craig Sargent and Gabe Pincelli. They all kind of came together and came up with here's the ones we need.
Do we have Air Force Escapacs for A10s and Eagles? Yeah.
We have not done those yet because they are different and a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah,
but
they're very different seats.
I market an A4 Escapac or an A7 Escapac to Air Force guys for an Eagle. Someone's going to find fault.
Yeah, which is why I asked if you've done them yet, because A10 and F15 Escapacs from the 70s are for me at least a bit of a hole in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Rich is listening. I'm sure he's taking notes. And frankly, I mean the seat frame and everything. It's mainly the head box and the straps and things that changed. And the head knocker, that I believe as well. But that's something we consider. We talk more than you think about things. So we're going to work towards some other new, different things that And the one thing we've learned together, Rich, Craig Sargent, and yourself. We don't really go out there and publicize anything we're doing anymore before it's done. We don't post the drawings because there are a couple of bigger names that, oh wow, suddenly are coming out with the same thing. And coincidence, maybe sometimes, but most of the time I think not. We're a field mouse in a field of 100 acres, and it baffles me that certain companies kind of keep an eye. And again, not sour grapes, please, guys, if you're listening, it's not sour grapes. It's just a trend we've noticed. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Hobby Time says 1/32 scale early RAF Hawk ejection seats would be good.
They would be great.
It's reference. It's all down to reference.
Is references.
Yep.
If you have the reference for an early round head box Mark 10 in a Hawk, share the reference.
Yeah. Richard says documentation of these versions is very poor. A7 stuff is pretty good, but the early A10 F15 not so much. So,
and it's really even up to the early 90s, the Israelis were still flying their F-15As with Escapac seats.
But the problem is, most of the pictures you see, they're installed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
With dimensions and things like that, it's always easier when there's a seat sitting on a stand and you can look at the dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
So
Steve Moores says, here we go. He says, I'm off to visit Martin Baker in 3 weeks.
Hey, Steve.
Here's a shopping list.
Yeah. Hit me up on Facebook on PM and give me some measurements and some pictures. And
because interestingly,
the
F-16 Block 70 and 72 are using a Martin Baker seat now.
Yeah.
They've moved to a Martin Baker seat, and I think there's kind of like they're divvying up the contracts, because I think I'm right in saying the T7 Red Hawk is using the Aces 5, which is the next obviously iteration on from the Aces 2. So they're kind of you know, the F35 and the F16 Block 72 are using Martin Bakers. I think I'm right in saying the F15EX is using the Aces 5. And
you're right,
as is the T7 Red Hawk. So the US Air Force is playing a fairly sort of canny game there.
I've also
Fabulous looking aeroplane, though, isn't it? The T7. It just
it's a nice,
it's like a little baby F16 is F15, isn't it? It's just, I like it. I can't wait for the first kit to go out of that, gentlemen. Any other business?
I did a little bit of business. I'm going to make an unofficial official announcement here.
Oh,
one of your very wonderful countrymen, Tim Perry, who we all know. Tim Perry, former PP Aero Parts. I can't remember the name of his company that he currently uses, but he's been doing it more as a hobby. Is graciously selling and allowing me to print pretty much everything he's drawn and market it under Phase Hanger. The first things that are coming out are some amazing 1,000-pound free fall bombs in 48th and 32nd scale that would be used on like the Tornado and things like that. Along with a bunch of World War II really cool ordnance, and we're going to scale it up and down and all around. And Tim has been, he reached out to me and generously said, you know, he's retiring. He wants to enjoy his hobby, and he couldn't think of anybody better to offer his wares to than Phase Hanger. So
again, with Tim, it's absolutely premium quality stuff. Tim's been designing in CAD for 3 decades.
Yep. So for me, it's an absolute honor for him, because we've been friends for a long time. And when I started going into 3D printing, he was very instrumental in encouraging me. Him and Richard. Richard's here. So look for some really. What's that?
Over the years, Tim has been relentless in encouraging anybody and everybody to get into 3D printing and CAD design.
Absolutely.
He is one of the industry sort of
pioneer,
and he just and it's always been with Tim. If anybody shows even the slightest interest in doing that, he's on board and trying to help you immediately.
Absolutely.
You know, it's just the way Tim's always been.
I'm trying to get my head around the fact that Tim is retiring, because I still have kicking around. I will post it up on the Facebook page at some stage. An article from Scale Models, which was probably about 1983-ish, where it went to Bristol to visit PP Aero Parts. And it describes Tim Perry, a 26-year-old Tim Perry.
And Tim Wander.
I can remember going to Air Day at Yeovilton in the early 80s, and like, no, this was just when you know, Aero Club and PP Aero Parts was starting out, and you know, Tim and his dad had a little table there with a bunch of etched brass ladders on sale. Just on this little sort of like fold-out table in the middle of Yeovilton, the Yeovilton Air Day.
The funny thing is, he's also setting me up with his photo etcher for some of the things on, like the spinners and things on some of his bombs and things. So those things will take a little bit longer, but the stuff I can get out printing. In fact, like I said, first couple are coming out this week. I cannot believe how beautiful the STLs are Literally, there isn't a single print line on these 30-second scale bombs that print vertical. And he sent them to me unsupported. He's like, I can't send them to you supported because our systems don't talk that way.
Yeah.
So I sent him photos of the ones I printed, and he goes, dude, run with those. Those are absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done better. And
Don't change a thing.
that ego boost it gave me, kind of like when Rich does the same. I'll send him a photo of something that he sends me because he really likes me to work on my own supports. Because that's my Achilles heel sometimes.
It's a bit of a mutual appreciation side, isn't it? When you told me the other week about that guy, I sometimes think, Mike's paid me for this stuff. Is anybody actually buying it? And he told me about the guy ordering 20 sets of my F16 wheels. It's like, oh right, so people are buying it then.
Yeah, I mean, it's either a hit or a miss in many cases. But the thing is, when you increase your catalog size and give people more options, it only improves the fact that you're gonna get that. Oh well, crap! This guy's got that. I might as well buy it.
Yeah.
And I try to. And Rich and I have spoke about this ad nauseum too. And John, I know we got to go. Price point. We try to keep it as affordable and inexpensive as possible, to where we still make money, but we also, want to make sure that modelers, especially in this economy, in this day and age, are willing to go, okay, well, it's only $20. It's only $15.
Yeah.
Whereas, we could go, well, let's make it 30. Well, at that point, some modelers, that's when the alarm in their head goes off and goes, do I need it? It's a $50 kit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're playing it. I think you're playing it just about right, Mike. I think you really are.
Well,
on that note of harmony, isn't that a wonderful way to end the show? What we will do at some stage, because we're coming up to midsummer, and I think what we should do is we should have an extended midsummer show, so that we can really kind of kick off and whatnot. So, and especially not a night where I'm doing another webcast. So. On that note, I just want to say a big thank you to Drew and to Mike and to everyone who tuned in tonight.
Absolutely.
I will usually read through everybody, but there's so many people watching tonight, it will take me till tomorrow to do it. So we will, fingers crossed, we might be doing some pop-up lives during the week. But failing that, we will see you next Sunday for another Sunday service. So, Drew, you look like you're going to say something, mate.
Sorry, no, I was on another tab just for a second.
Okay. When he means tab, he means on a computer, not.
Yes.
Anyway. All right.
Well, you say that.
On that note,
I'm on my phone. I have no tab. I can go.
Let's end it now before we get into trouble. Everybody stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we'll see you next week. So bye for now.
Take care, everybody.